Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me returning guests Satine Phoenix and Jamison Stone. And I hope I got your name right. I hope I
Yes.
did.
Yes. Excellent. Hello,
So
everyone.
Hi.
so I'm very excited. And so welcome back to Satine. Obviously, Jamison, I'm meeting you for the first time, and a lot's been going on since I last spoke with you, Satine, 5 years ago. And I think the biggest thing is your current Kickstarter that's going on, which is Sirens
High
Battle of the
five.
Bards.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, I think you're over 130,000, 25 days left.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that just got unlocked and a variety of other things. But for those who are sort of living under a rock and not in the gaming world and the Dungeons and Dragons world and the role playing world, what is the basic premise of Sirens Battle of the Bards? For those who don't know.
Yeah, so it's a Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition campaign and setting. This is our daughter, Freya.
Sorry. We got photobombed by our daughter.
5th edition campaign and setting. So if you like, if you've never played Dungeons and Dragons, you're like, what on earth is this? If you like board games, this is kind of like a board game, but instead of just depending on a piece of paper to say what the rules are and instructions are, you have somebody like me or Jamison that is the game master. And so I'm the director, I'm the narrator, and then everyone at the table, they are players. So they are the main actors. And so we're creating a book that is a movie essentially for this game. So it's 20 different adventures for you and your friends to go on. And there's it takes place in a city called Salvata. It's a city of artists. It's kind of a celebration of art and culture. And of course, there is a hierarchy that the rebellion really wants to overthrow because it's unfair that they keep stealing the magic, the delicious, beautiful magic of the city for themselves.
Yeah, and I think it's a great place for seasoned game masters to jump into, or for new game masters to enjoy as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've made it incredibly user-friendly for new people, so this could be their first time game mastering or their first time playing a TTRPG, and for people like Satine who've been game mastering for decades.
Yeah.
I have as well, although I think that Satine probably has more game mastering accolades than
different.
I do. So yeah, we're really excited to share it with everybody.
Yeah, to go into that a little bit, because obviously I am very new to the entire idea of game mastering. You know, I've only done a few campaigns. My friends don't want to invite me in. You know, that's their problem, their fault. But I don't know as much as both of you know. And obviously D&D and game mastering and the role-playing games and tabletop games in general, in the last, I think, 10 years, I've been on a massive rise. And so even to expand into this new segment, and I know that you've written a book before as well that dealt with this. And so, yeah, well, what is this entire experience like for you? Because this is an amazingly successful project on Kickstarter.
Yeah, so our last book was called The Red Opera, and this is it here. And so this is a Warlock campaign book. So here we have on top, we have a kind of bloody Warlock. It's a much darker story. It's set in the world, or excuse me, the city of Yonkoth in the Shadelands. And so again, written for 5th edition. So for people who are comfortable with Dungeons and Dragons, that's the kind of open source Dungeons and Dragons rule set. We just absolutely love creating worlds for people to enjoy, and it doesn't have to be used just specifically for 5th edition. People can play this in any game system that they like. They'd have to port it over, but 5th edition is a really wonderful kind of rule set where it's very flexible, and a lot of people are very accustomed to making those transitions. And for a new game master, potentially like yourself, 5th edition is fantastic because it has very clear outlines. Okay, this is how you play, this is what you do, and there's just enough rules to give you structure to be able to know how to play the game, but not too many rules to get you bogged down and to make it overly confusing. Some systems are way too rule heavy in my opinion, and other systems are a little too rule light. And I even actually like a lot of those systems that are very light on rules and allows the game master to really kind of step in and set the stage, but that can be a little overwhelming for a new game master that needs a little bit of structure. And so Sirens Battle of the Bards is a fantastic place for new people to step in if they'd like, where they can pick up this beautiful book. It's not too dark and, you know, evil, although we have those dark elements, which is awesome. Any good story does. We, you know, want to overcome evil and, you know, things like that. But it's a great way for new people to really, you know, to step into the TTRP genre and get their feet wet.
Yeah, I mean, I started playing when I was 8 years old. I picked up the starter kit essentially, and I've been running it since then. So Dungeons and Dragons has done a really awesome thing, which is keeping, like you said, the rules simple, but actually for a variety of age ranges. So, you know, that's why you've got Stranger Things have those kids are playing this game, and you know, I teach people how to play all the way up to their 80s. So there is no age range for this except can you read? And even then, we have a friend, BJ Hensley, who's writing adventures for children. Like, you know, we have one for our 3.5-year-old, and that's pretty fantastic too. So this is a game that anybody can pick up, and our specifically, we have mechanics and rules so that people can learn to play these games more cooperatively. You know, we're both video gamers. We play Baldur's Gate 3. We're playing that on Monday nights. And that's cool. But even then, you're still working with a bunch of other people in your party. And maybe they're not played by your friends, but it shows that if you guys all work together, you can overcome obstacles. So that's kind of the premise of this book, Sirens, Battle of the Bards. And bards are what? Performers, they're artists, you know, painters, musicians. If you've seen The Witcher, you definitely know what that kind of bard is like. And we're creating even more artist type bards. We have sculptor bards, we have acrobat bards, we have architect bards that are more intelligence-based, we have and math-based. We have physical bards. We have the quiet artists, introverts, and extroverts. So by picking up Sirens Battle of the Bards on the bardbook.com, you're able to learn Dungeons and Dragons and learn it with the advantage of, you know, like one of the shows that I did was Game Master Tips. So I teach people how to be a better game master. And so we're going to utilize a lot of those tips that I used on Geek and Sundry and on the when I did Dungeon Master's Guide on Dungeons and Dragons website, and also on my own, which we're doing Game Master Tips on Twitch, on Satine's Twitch. So yeah, we're using a lot of those elements to help new game masters become dungeon masters, and also veteran game masters to kind of like change it up a little bit.
So to even go into this, because now that we got all the preliminary stuff and caught everybody up, who knows nothing about any of this, I do want to talk about the city of Savata and what that city is, because I do want to dive into it, because you've built a very interesting world and a very rich world in many ways. And so I'm going to give a little bit of things away, but it's pretty much on the Kickstarter, so I think it's safe ground.
Yeah.
Where basically there's this great chancellor who has built this entire city out of pretty much what was nothing in a desert. It's turning coal into diamonds is really what's going on. It's this nice thriving place. Every century they're getting closer and closer to heaven, but obviously there's some things that are, I guess technically under this city, everybody's equal, but some are more equal than others.
Exactly.
I would say.
Yeah.
And basically there's a lot of stuff going on. So what was this even concept of setting the stage and building this self-sufficient city to some degree defines all the odds, but then there's an undertone and rebellion is in the air. And then there's so many stories that could be built out of that. So how did that initially all come about?
Yeah, we wanted to create something that was radically new and unique for our last book, The Red Opera, which people can learn about at theredopera.com. We had it again as this kind of dark and brooding city, and it was actually a dual city that was at war with each other, and it was split by this thing called the Obsidian Rush. And again, a warlock-ruled city is very kind of almost nefarious and not evil, but just kind of like spooky and dark. And so for this project, we really wanted to create something that was bright and full of life, but have it also be incredibly unique. And so we had it centered around this oasis, as you mentioned. Originally, a band of people came and they discovered the oasis, and they gave thanks to the gods, and they gave this offering. And the gods actually then smiled down upon them in saying, "Well, thank you for thanking us." And they blessed this oasis with magical properties. The people loved this, and it was a bunch of bards and druids. And every 100 years, they did this grand invocation to invoke the gods again, to once again shower down magical essence. It's called Kesava, into the oasis. They started building a tiered city of these discs, higher and higher and higher, drawing up this oasis water, this magically infused oasis water. And we wanted it to be kind of a bastion of art. And so if we think about what really is a bard, it's not just a minstrel or like a lute player, but it's really their artists. And so the actual city itself is both pays like homage to art, and itself is a structure of art, and being built by an architect bard using sacred geometry acts as kind of a lightning rod or like a tuning fork to that magic from the gods. So every 100 years they have this invocation, and Calrath, who you mentioned, is the overseer and the chancellor who's been shepherding that process for the past 300 years. But the gods told them, okay guys, the party's been great, you've done a lot of really fantastic invocations. 10 is enough. You're going to have only 10 invocations, so 1,000 years, and then we're done. So this is the 1,000th year. This is after this, there's no more. And so Calrath is building, he wants to build this capping stone that allows the oasis and the city to magically charge itself, and enable itself to actually be like a battery that charges itself. However, the Emerald Cabal, and that's the kind of a nefarious group found in Sirens from Satine Phoenix's live stream show, they've come in and infiltrated the city, and they want to do something very different. Yeah, and so we wanted to create this place where, when you have the brightest creative lights, it casts the longest shadows, and those shadows are the Emerald Cabal and the people the nobles that they've manipulated and corrupted. And your party is thrust into the middle of this wild situation where you're literally battling for the heart of a growing empire.
Yeah, and you could pick whatever side you want to be on. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, and I'm the type of player that I love being Judas and everything that I could be in. And I love being the bad guy. I love double heel turns and all sorts of stuff in wrestling, and I love it. And so you could, from my understanding, join the Emerald Cabal. You could join the Rebellion. You could do whatever you really want, per se. Yep. Technically, you don't have to choose a side. You could choose whichever side you want. You could play both sides, I suppose. And there's all sorts of stuff that can happen in this. And there's a lot of freedom because this world is built up very much in that way. And that's something that I think is super fascinating, that you can be the bad guy in this entire world. And it's very, very unstructured in that way, and that you can thwart the gods, or you could side with the gods and then climb up to heaven or climb down to heaven, depending on what you want to do. So what was that even building that mechanic into it? Because it is so interesting when you have that much freedom to do that.
Yeah, we wanted to give players choice. A lot of people put their players on rails, and we have it built in. So yes, we have a storyline, we have player agency. The whole thing takes place over a 10-day. So you get there, and by the 10th day, whether you do anything or not, the world around you exists and is living and is moving. We actually have a timeline in each chapter to keep track of where everyone is, so that you, the game master, can kind of follow the players as they move around, because often they want to go left when you want them to go right. So we built this adventure so that they can have freedom of choice. We have multiple endings, but also it's contained in one location, and that actually helps a lot. It helps the dungeon master because they don't have to expand into other areas of the world. By keeping it tight, keeping a tight timeline, the players can be more involved with what's going on.
Yep. Yeah, and we have a fame and renown tracking system inside of the book, and on the game master screen, there's actually a place to be able to track this as well. But within the book, in every chapter, it lets you know how much fame and renown for each of the different factions you can gain or lose in this chapter and adventure. And so that way, the game master can very easily track, as you mentioned, who you're currying favor with. And you can start to, once you have a high enough fame and renown, you can start to affect how the story is played out and start to play the factions against each other. You can hypothetically betray one faction for another if you'd like, and really run the game how you want it. We had much success in the Red Opera, where we had multiple endings, and some of those endings were very, very dark and nefarious. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, when you play a video game, you kind of sometimes have different endings, but there's, really more of a kind of a canonical path. We have kind of a canonical ending and then a couple of different variations of that, but we want to leave it open for players to be able to play the game how they want. And we have like very legitimate endings for that that feel still very rewarding and fulfilling for the players and the party and the game master. So for someone like yourself who maybe want to take a slightly darker path, that's there for you.
Yeah,
so right for the taking.
And the other thing is, I've talked a lot about this online about good parties versus evil parties. And even if you have an evil party, what is evil? It's selfishness. But what would people do if they're selfish? They're going to, and this is what we're kind of showing people, is they still work together. It doesn't mean they all just immediately stab each other in the back. Oftentimes it's like, okay, this is what we really want. And I need you, you, and you to do it. And they're like, oh, this is what I want. And I need you, you, and you to do this. Okay, fine. We're going to make a deal, at least for this adventure. After that, it's all up in the air, So good or evil or in between, there's a lot of fun in this adventure for you.
Yep.
Yeah, and even to go into that, because I think it's great that there's choice. I love the fact that there's a tracking system, because this stuff can get massively complicated. And I know that this is obviously, a shorter campaign. I know that people have been playing D&D for years on end, and they're still in like a year. They're in like a 10-year campaign.
Totally.
And so even the fact that there's a tracker, because people can get lost, even in a one-night setting with things going on and parties diverging and things like that, people can get lost. So I think that's kind of nice that you have a friendly system put in place that actually can allow the game master to say, okay, now I know where everybody is, and so now I'm keeping the game on the rails, but I'm also still allowing for it to be self-contained within the game. And also, I would imagine the game master could also have some control, knowing that, well, if they go down 4 more steps, it's going to become a way more chaotic, or they could sort of force things to happen for a more experienced game master per se. And that tracking system is a way to do it. And I think that's a really nice touch into this and super helpful, because somebody like me, if I'm to be a game master, I'm not going to know exactly what to do, and a tracking system is going to be super helpful.
And in addition to, we have game master tips that really help dial in for both the seasoned game master and a new game master, really how to run the campaign. And for someone like Satine, she literally were the game master of game master tips, of GM tips, and so she's able to walk new game masters through, and seasoned game masters, really how to run this campaign for maximal enjoyment for the party, and the players, and also the game master themselves.
Yeah, and I love it. I love the fact that you're not just throwing me to the wolves.
No. We even have stat blocks. So we say come in at tier 2. It's like around level 5-ish, and all of the stat blocks are for tier 2. But we also have more heavy duty NPCs, non-player characters that are bad guys or whoever you're going to fight. We have them at different stat blocks as well. So there's a tier 2, a tier 3, and a tier 4 in case you want to come in if maybe you're bringing in an old adventuring party into this, you're placing this in your world, and you can play this with them. So, level 10, level 15, level 20, we have something for all of you. And we're not making people come up with these stats, these monster stats on their own. We're actually giving it to you. We say, if you're running a game that's 4 to 6 players at tier 2, this is how many monsters you should be using in this encounter. If they're higher level, this is the type of encounter change. And we really we want to make it as easy as possible, even to the point where we're kind of redesigning the layout of the page, of all the pages, for the game master to be able to quick reference visually, so they can kind of flip back and forth as they need.
Yeah, and then even to back out of the game master side, because I do want to talk about the entire city and the setting. There's like 10 different areas in the city, and there's obviously the Battle Coliseum. There's a few amphitheaters. There's a comedy club. I think there's a tavern. There's some bazaars. There's obviously an underground magic fighting ring. I gotta have the black market somewhere in there.
Oh yeah.
You have universities, and then there's a few more places as well. So what was that like? Because obviously there's a lot of places that people can be and go to and engage in, and I would imagine, what's going to happen in the underground magic fighting ring is not going to happen at the university.
Right. Yeah.
Or,
totally.
well, I mean,
yeah, it depends. But maybe some of the people from the university are going to the underground fighting ring. Yeah. When I think of my favorite worlds and my favorite universes, they are rich, deep, and detailed. And so anything that has a sense of just depth to it, where there's a lot there and it feels like a vibrant, living world. Those are the franchises, the IP. Those are the stories that I'm drawn to. And so at Apotheosis Studios, that's what we make. We make the things that we ourselves as gamers want to play in. And so when we set out to create Salvata, this notion of a tiered, multi-leveled city that evolved every 100 years and having a new level, how would that affect the city? How would that affect its culture? How would these tiers be different? And all of these things, when we think of this notion of kind of evolution over time, and then adding in art, it's an amazing way to really craft a city. Most cities kind of grow outward, but ours grows up, and it grows up over time. And so when you start at the bottom, it's almost like an entranceway. It's like, kind of like walking into like Epcot or Disney World. And then as every level higher you go, it becomes more and more wealthy and more magical and more rarefied, almost to like elemental planes where things are so infused with magic, it doesn't even seem like normal reality anymore.
Yeah, and like, where do you put all the people that work in that theme park first and second level? Third disc is where they live, and third disc was where everything went wrong, and they actually did try to do their, grand invocation, and the gods were like, that wasn't good enough. So now you got a bigger tier. And what was life like there? It's a little more industrial. You got workers that live there, unions that are there, a lot more pubs, like old, like medieval pub style stuff there. But then you have a university and a government building disc. And so that's going to have its own ecosystem. And you have the VIP levels where it's just doors, it's just doors to all their mini mansions. And then you have even high, like on, I think number 9 is the super VIP, which is the people that are coming there, like who want to be as close as possible to witness the grand invocation, the 10th grand invocation. So that's kind of your, when they put a city in, or they put the Olympics in a new city, and then suddenly they just build and everything's new and fancy, so there's different essence. There's a different feeling on each one of these discs. And the lower discs, some people don't want to move higher. And then you've got, some of the young kids who do want to get higher, and they want more, and they want more money, and they'll do anything. And artists some might do anything in order to get that big paycheck from the nobles who live up top. So you've got from, union workers all the way up to Beverly Hills style nobles. And both of us, like, you lived in San Francisco and I'm from San Francisco and LA, and we both traveled the world. We wanted to create a place that was evocative of these different places that we've actually physically grown to love. And, you go to Beverly Hills, that's different than Hollywood, that's different than Santa Monica or Venice. And it's the entire city is its own character. And on top of that, each disc is its own character. And it's run by, there's a council that runs the government, but there's a representative that from each of the discs or districts that is in that council. And you can kind of, those people are representative of those discs as well. So the city is living and breathing. The people who are the speakers for those districts are living and breathing. And we want you to really feel it and experience it in this game.
Yeah, and in many ways, this entire city reminds me of Swords Art Online. And I don't know if you've seen that anime, but obviously they're climbing up all the way to escape to the 100th floor. And as you get higher and higher up, obviously the difficulty level rises, what the rare of the item, each floor has its own entire entity. Each floor becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And obviously there's like a whole thing dealing with that. And so I love the fact of climbing up, and then you are getting to those higher levels and having that stuff. And the hierarchy is visually reflected because it makes a lot of sense in many ways. And it also is like upper society, and then obviously you would expect that the top tier people would be closest to heaven because that's just viewership and they want to see it. And then obviously all sorts of stuff, and even knowledge is viewed as a higher thing as well, so that would be expected as a trait. So I love the fact that as you visually go up, the things that you're dealing with are higher and higher and higher. So I think it's just perfect, and it reflects the game, and then the entire underling and the idea of rebellion and all that stuff. It's just very fitting, and it makes logical sense, which is something that sometimes stories don't do. And I think that that's a big issue with storytelling, is that sometimes, especially with certain companies, things aren't so logical, and this seems very logical.
Yeah.
We were we were just a couple of days ago finished up. I don't want to say the series because I don't want to speak ill of it, because we actually really enjoy it. But we were just kind of poking holes in a show that we both enjoy, and I won't say it because I don't want to say it.
It's so good.
It's amazing. It's amazing. But
and also
there are certain aspects to it that aren't logical and don't make sense. You can tell that the writer and the directors just kind of wanted to have a scene. They wanted this thing to happen, and so they just kind of made it happen. And you're like, well, it doesn't really fit there. And so for me, when I tell stories, if I want to have a scene, I have to work really hard to earn that scene. Otherwise, you don't get to have it. It needs to follow a logical progression, and you can't have characters doing things that are either outside of their nature or just outside of what a human would do, given a certain circumstance. And you can have dragons and magic, and you can have demons and all these things, but you still have to have people doing things that make sense and track. Otherwise, it's just kind of like lazy writing.
Yeah. And one other thing that I really like that we did was to showcase what these bad guys look like. Again, being from Los Angeles, Beverly Hills looks so nice from the outside. LA looks so nice from the outside, but sometimes the most beautiful things are the most corrupt. So, our Herald, he's the big bad guy in this. He is high charisma. He is so charming, and he has this presence. And when he speaks, you're like, maybe what he's saying is right, So we wanted to kind of amplify that as well. You don't know who the Emerald Cabal are. You can't tell, not just by meeting somebody. It's really we want to make it difficult to find out who these people are, except for when the mercenaries come after you and then they're wearing the emerald masks. That one, then you know who those are. But there are people in the upper discs that are also Emerald Cabal, and not knowing who those are, that's fun for me as a game master.
Yeah, I like how you just said, Beverly Hills, and then LA looks beautiful, because I lived in DC, so I know all about that. You never know who truly is evil in DC. So having said that, that's why I'm laughing, because it's so true. And I love the fact that there is this entire, I don't want to say a shadow game being played, but you don't know who your allies are in this game, and you don't know who your enemies are. And you could think somebody's your enemy, and they're not. And you have people who are higher up and who may or may not be your friend. And it just creates a whole, political situation and a revolutionary. And there's so many difficulties and intricate twists that can be achieved out of this, that there's just so much playability, I feel.
Yeah. And, we don't throw people into this story. They're actually answering a call. Both of our characters are in it. My character, I came up with her when I was 12. Her name is Vlanya Umvara, and she's a band manager. And she's also the head of a spy network. And Jamison's character is Vajra. And there he is. Oh, it's so beautiful. And actually, that's Jamison minus the glowing. Yeah, so you're not thrown into this blindly. You're there, you're answering the call to adventure, and you're there to meet up with that spy network. And where you go from there, you can choose to go, you know, with Emerald Cabal, the Rebellion, or whomever you want. But at least there's a center point. And she has a need, and she's trying to get rid of the Emerald Cabal. But then through meeting and talking to people, who knows what direction you'll go in.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that can be done. And obviously, you know, I'm a comic book guy, and most people I speak to are in the comic sector. So this could go in 15 different ways. So normally, if this was like a linear story, I'd be asking, hey, what can people expect? But obviously, you get to sort of choose that adventure, and you get this book and get this entire, whether it's digital or a hard copy or the super collector's copy. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that's happening with it. And obviously you also have invented a whole bunch of things, like I think 10 new subclasses for Bards, which, you know, Dungeons and Dragons, from my understanding, there's like elves and goblins and everything, right? Pretty much everything. I'm sure that both of you know way more about that than I do, but there hasn't been anything major for Bards in that entire sector. And so
yeah, only a couple things, but we're exploring something that I don't think that Dungeons and Dragons can right now. So we do it on our own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what was that like, creating 10 new subclasses? Because this is going to be an expansion for just not this project, but for other projects and for people who like to world jump. You know, I go back to SAO because they do world jump in that. And obviously, when you world jump, some modification has to happen, but a lot of the core attributes stay the same. And so, obviously, I'm just looking at this, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not an experienced D&D player, but I would imagine that people can take these sub-characters and place them into another world.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so for us, we really wanted to, and again, we did the same thing with the Red Opera, of really saying, okay, what are the core characteristics of this class? What do we love about this class? And so for Warlocks, we looked at different types of pacts that people were making and different entities that you can make a pact with. So we have like a time warlock, we have a soul stealing warlock, and then created different ways that you could approach being a warlock. With Bards, we even went a step further and said, you know, Bards have been kind of typecast to just being one specific way. You think of, I really love Witcher 3 and then the Witcher Netflix series, and I enjoyed Witcher 2 as well. I never played Witcher 1, but I enjoyed Witcher 2 and Witcher 3 and Gwent. But, you know, the Dandelion character is kind of what a lot of people in their mind, when they think of a Bard, they think of that character, and he totally is a Bard. There's no questioning that, but that's not the only type of Bard. That's just one very specific type of Bard. That is a little overplayed, I think, at least for players in 5th edition in the Dungeons and Dragons space. Although the Dandelion character from Witcher is really fantastic. Yeah. Reed does a really great job. I love that show, and the game is fantastic too. CD Projekt Red did a great job with that franchise. So how we approached Bards was first kind of taking a step back and saying, okay, what are Bards at their core? They're artists. But there's a lot of different ways of being an artist. And currently within 5th edition, the Bard class is a charisma-based class. So that's its primary stat.
Performance-based. Yeah, it's like a performing charisma even.
Yes. So that's even more specific.
This is news to me. I don't know anything about this. So totally. Again, I'm such a newbie. This is so.
I'll teach you.
Yeah. So imagine like from a video game perspective, or from like Sword Art Online, when you cast a spell or you do an action, if you have strength, charisma, dexterity, constitution, wisdom, and intelligence, that's the 6. For a spellcaster, or really any ability, like a ranger is going to be dex based, a barbarian or a fighter is going to be strength based, a wizard is going to be intelligence based, a druid is going to be wisdom based. Interestingly, a paladin is charisma based, so when they cast spells, it's charisma based, and a warlock is also charisma based, and so is a bard is charisma based. But we wanted to take it from a perspective of what if people want to take a subclass. So like let's say there's someone who's like a martial artist, and so that would be like a monk, and so that's a dexterity based. But they don't want to just be a fighting monk. They also want to be a dancer and actually be beautiful in their art form of how they move their body. So instead of having it be only based off of charisma, which is traditionally how Dungeons and Dragons in 5th edition has approached the bard, we're allowing now the bard class, that subclass, and that school of kind of the bardic arts, and they call it in 5th edition the college, a specific college, and we're kind of naming ours a university, kind of almost a little bit of a level up, of being able to take a subclass within a different primary stat, a different one of those different ones. And so for a dex-based bard, that could be someone like a dancer or a martial artist. And you can have like a mathematics bard, sacred geometry, an architect, almost similar to kind of like an artificer or an artificer, depending on how you want to pronounce it. There's like people argue online.
It's artificer.
Okay, I don't get involved in the arguments. I just say both. But to lean into people who want to try out being a bard, and you could go just a full-on bard in that class if you want, but almost to come to to come to, much like you went to Yonkoth to get a subclass in Warlock, you can come to Salvata to get a subclass in Bard, and having that subclass be under your primary attribute. Now, I like to play Paladin right now. That's what Vajra is, and so that subclass I would naturally try to pick something within charisma, because I have a very high charisma stat for a paladin. But if there was a barbarian, maybe we want to have a bardbarian. Maybe he's a drummer, percussionist, and he wants to
use strength for their performance, like taiko drums, or maybe this is like a large scale sculpture, and they're having to push and pull and mold. So we've got the College of Anatomy. So in our university, we can tell you 2 of them right now. That's College of Anatomy. And then we also have, so that's your dex based, and then College of Geometry, and that's your intelligence based.
See, this is so fascinating, and now I want to get into it even more. I just need to find people to play with. It's a problem, and then COVID doesn't help. COVID doesn't help that. Also, I'm new to Connecticut, so that doesn't help either. But those
we're all
are
playing virtually.
Yeah,
when people gave up doing it in person, you can go to demiplane.com, and that's kind of a matchmaking system. You go to any of our Discords, Apotheosis Studios Discord and Gilding Light Discord. We have rooms for you to join in. Say, hey, I'm new. I want to play. I don't know how to do this. Someone help me. There's that. Lots of forums. We will have this book not only in PDF and the standard edition and limited edition and a special edition, but we also have it in VTTs, and that stands for Virtual Tabletop. So we have maps, and you have little minis and tokens that you can move on the screen. We have 4 different companies that we're working with: Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, Foundry, and Shard. So we have made this available for everyone. If you don't have anyone local to play with, you can play with people all over. We play with people all over the world: Perth, Australia, Poland, Italy. And this is like, I'm running 4 games a week?
Yeah, all online. Yeah. So I would encourage you to check out the Gilding Light Discord server, and then the Apotheosis Studios community Discord server. They're both fantastic places to find people to play games. And while you wait for Sirens to be released, we actually have a free sample to be able to play Sirens Battle of the Bards. And so I'm sure you could find a group of people in either of those 2 Discord servers who would love to play Sirens with you. And you could either be a game master or just playing someone else's game.
Yeah, so you can go to thebardbook.com and just scroll down for all the free samples. We even have a free sample of Sirenscape, which is the Dungeon Master DJ sound set. So while you have a monster coming at you, push a button, it goes, or whatever it does, or there's a magic spell or a meteor storm. You just push buttons for sound effects. And also the other cool thing that we're building something really, truly immersive. So we have a full orchestral soundtrack. And so you can see some of that music or hear some of that music.
And, good old Jason Charles Miller did a bunch of that. And for those who don't know, obviously I am a big anime fan. I'm a big otaku fan. And Jason Charles Miller has been in a bunch of anime. He's been in a bunch of cartoons. And he's done a bunch of stuff in that realm. And he's also just been in a bunch of popular shows. He's had some roles all over the place. And so obviously everybody knows who his voice is, but you don't know necessarily it's his voice per se. And everybody's heard Jason Charles Miller's voice. So what was that like? Because that's a very cool thing to have somebody who's been in entertainment and is the head of music of a band and all that stuff. I mean,
he's wonderful. No, you're doing great. So Jason and I have been best friends for about 10, 11 years, and he is part of the Sirens. That's the live stream that I've been doing for the last 4 years. And he is amazing. I've always wanted to work with him. So when we were coming up with the trailer, we reached out to him and said, we want you to do the trailer music for our Kickstarter. Oh, thank you so much. And he said yes, thank goodness. And he does lots and lots of Dungeons and Dragons. I would say he and I are on par for our obsession with Dungeons and Dragons.
Does he have a D&D ampersand tattoo? I think not.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Well, JCM, that's the challenge.
He does make music, Dungeons and Dragons music every week on Untitled Champions. So that's really fun.
Does he have a character on Untitled Champions?
Not yet.
Oh,
not
Jason's
yet.
got to get a character.
There's a business meeting going on, everybody. Just so everybody knows.
Yeah. So
live, just totally live.
Yeah. You can play my character Vlanya and also Ariza, who is also from Sirens. It's an all bard band that's part of Vlanya's Spy Network. But you can play us on Idle Champions. It's a idle clicker game. So we asked Jason Charles Miller. He said yes, thank goodness. And the three of us sat down for like 6 hours on a Saturday, and we wrote the lyrics. And as we're writing the lyrics, he's writing the music, and he's like, yeah, I see this. And it was like, Jamison is a professional fantasy author and a sci-fi author and a graphic novelist, and I'm also an author and graphic novelist. And so between the three of us, it was just this whirlwind of creativity that I haven't felt since San Francisco. It was so much fun.
It's fantastic working with Jason. He's a true example of a bard too. He is a musician, but he's also a voice actor. He's also an actor.
His body is his instrument, and also he plays instruments with his instrument.
Yeah.
So many things I could say to that. I'm being an adult in the room for no reason. So many things I could say to that.
That's funny. That's true. I do that. So it was really great working with him. He's one of my best friends on the planet and just an incredible musician.
And to even go further, because there's some other people who are also very prominent. And I'm not too sure if they were brought in from the start or if it was stretch goals unlocked. But I know Deborah Ann Wool, who's very much a VIP writer. I know Chris Funk, and then I think Alex Kramer Kramer just got unlocked or is getting unlocked. I'm not exactly sure.
He just got unlocked.
Yeah, just got unlocked. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see.
That's why I was trending carefully because I know it was supposed to be at like 130. And I know that we're somewhat in that range.
Oh, we're almost.
We're almost at our next stretch goal, too.
Yeah, so if you like comic books, you probably have heard of Kabuki or Daredevil. And David Mack is a very prolific artist. And also...
He's working with Neil Gaiman on Sandman as well.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite graphic novels.
Yeah.
My favorite graphic novel of all time, actually.
Yeah, Sandman's great. We have like a ton of
them. I have all of them here.
Yeah. So he gets unlocked at... 140,000, which is only 1,500. We're 1,500 away.
1,500 away from getting to have David Mack included in the book, which is going to be fantastic.
Yeah,
a full page illustration, and we'll have it be available as a print as well if people would like to purchase it as a print.
Yeah, and so that one's really cool because the models of that are Christine Wu and Zoe Milk, who are also two artists. And if you can go Google them, their work is incredible. I think Instagram is the way to go for that art. Really incredible artists. This book is made by artists for artists and people who just appreciate art. Maybe you don't want to be a bard. You don't have to be a bard to play with us. You can actually be whatever you want to be. We have a spot for you. But also, and we just want you to be immersed in this art. So David Mack gets unlocked. And then we have Nerdarchy gets unlocked as well. We have a lot more.
Yeah, Nerdarchy is coming up next.
Yeah, we have a lot of, I guess, who would you guys know? Mitch Iverson. Mitch Iverson, he was one of the writers on Voltron. So he did the Dungeons and Dragons episode of the new Voltron. I don't know if you've seen it or if you like Voltron, but it's awesome. He's also he's executive producer. I don't remember what his credit is. So I don't want to miscredit him, but he was, we saw his name pop up on the Dota
anime
cartoon.
Yeah, the Dota
anime. That was really cool. Yeah, so he's an amazing writer, and so he's going to be a future stretch goal. We have, for those of you who like Dungeons and Dragons, we have Keith Baker, who made Eberron, and he and I have partnered on quite a few projects over the last 11 years. And he started CCD20, Celebrity Chair D20, with me. And yeah, so he'll be a guest writer on it. We got to unlock their stretch goals. So yeah, just everyone keep supporting and backing. We have a lot of really fun, even add-ons to unlock that we haven't announced yet. And we're only, what, 5 days in?
Yep. Yeah.
And just to give an example, this is what the supposedly there we go, the stretch goal map looks like. For those who are interested in the longs. So it might look like the city. I'm just saying, it might look similar. So for those who are going to look at that. So that's something that's out there. And obviously that might have to get rerouted depending on how far you guys go.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Yeah, exactly.
And so obviously there's a lot of other stuff. Obviously there's like 20 adventures. There's some side quests as well that can be done and that people can go on. And there's a lot of other stuff. I think Luke Gygax, who is the son of the guy who created Dungeons and Dragons, is writing the forward for this. I'll throw that out there. And there's also a bunch of other stuff going on, such as a bunch of Siren episodes are being done. And these are just some of the people that may or may not be on there at some point. So I want to throw that out there really quickly. And then there's just a lot of rewards. And I have pictures, so that's what pictures are for.
You want to talk about how they do it? How the add-ons and Kickstarter did add-ons?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so add-ons are kind of a radically new thing in Kickstarter. It was just launched.
Backer kit, the way to go.
So BackerKit is fantastic, and we also use BackerKit, but there's actually a new way to do add-ons. So you can select your pledge tier. So let's say you just want to get the book and a set of dice, for example. You can go down, you select a tier that's a hardcover. Let's say you want to get the special edition because it's foil and it looks gorgeous. But you also want to get the dice. Historically, you'd have to go into BackerKit and wait for your survey or add the additional amount, and then it carried over to BackerKit. But now you actually can, once you click the tier, you click the next section and you add whatever add-on you'd like to have. And it's a seamless process where you click your tier. It'll show you a list of all the add-ons. You can scroll down. Oh, there's my dice. But maybe you'll see a couple other things that you want to get. Maybe a GM screen. Maybe you want to get our campaign coins of Salvato, which are
a Wormwood tray.
Or a Wormwood tray to roll your dice into. And then you'll be able to get those, and you add them on seamlessly, and then you check out. And then when the whole process is done, it'll all automatically port over into BackerKit, and then you just pay for shipping and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's so cool to see those dice. We work with a lot of amazing artists. Jamison's company.
These are the coins.
Those are the coins.
I designed the coins.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
Screen.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is, I think, the sound set.
Yep, that's the Sirens tape, exactly.
These are some dice.
Yeah, beautiful. This all clear, and it has white wisps with gold flakes in them.
And then this is, I guess, a full custom Bard dice resin or resin.
Yeah, those are our super dice.
Yeah,
now,
so those are custom designed and made specifically for this project to be kind of bardically inspired dice. There's never been dice like that made before.
Yeah.
And so that's some stuff. And then obviously there's a bunch of editions. So there's a standard edition. There's a foil edition. There's obviously some digital stuff. You've partnered with a bunch of different companies to do some, I guess, digital versions, as well as using, I guess, an iPad per se I'm taking a leap of faith because I have an iPad.
Yeah.
I literally lived like 10 and a half years without an iPad, and I don't know how I did it. It's amazing. So I've learned the way and changed my life indefinitely. So obviously that's out there, and it's pretty cool partnering and bringing that because obviously tabletop gaming is fascinating. You know, whether you're doing it through an app or doing it through a variety of other methods now, apparently it's out there, or even role-playing games and all that stuff. So cool stuff. And then obviously I'm sure there's a virtual to play with other people who are not in the same room near each other as well. So what is that like to even be able to expand into that?
Yeah, so our VTTs are our virtual tabletop platforms. We have Roll20, we have Fantasy Grounds, we have Foundry VTT, and we have Shard Tabletop. And so those are our four. We maybe will be having another one released in a couple weeks. We'll just have to, everyone needs to stay tuned. But those four are a great way for people who you maybe are a little bit more either video game inclined or just really enjoy having kind of a visual representation of what they're seeing, to be able to have all of the contents from the book, including our soundtrack, right there on screen. And there's versions of it for the iPad that you can play in your iPad, and web applications and downloadable applications too. And each one of our VTT platforms, they all kind of fit a slightly different niche. They all are kind of unique in their own right and cater to a kind of a core demographic within the gaming kind of the gaming community for virtual 5th edition and kind of our TTRPGs, tabletop role-playing games. And so we were really happy and really proud to be able to offer Sirens Battle of the Bards on each one of these platforms simultaneously, and to give 2 free samples. So both Foundry VTT and Shard Tabletop both have free downloadable samples of our Chapter 1 available right now, and so does Sirenscape has a free downloadable sample of its sound set of Chapter 1. And these things all complement our free PDF of the first chapter and some of our introductory chapters. We really believe that people should be able to know what it is that they're buying. They should be able to have the experience of it, check it out. We really are so proud of the art and the layout and the design, and of course the story as well, and the way that we communicate that story to both game masters and players. And so we just stand behind our games and want to be able to share it with people and give people a sample, and it's a very hearty sample.
Yeah.
And then also, as rewards go, custom character that's going to be into the book, and that's cool because people who love this stuff love it. It's the same thing with comic books. People who love comic books spend a lot of money on it. That's right. And then go hard at it. I am one of those people. I love commissions for a reason. And so people can get custom characters, people can get custom side quests, and that's super cool in that realm because now you're part of the book. Now you're actually getting something added to the adventure that's specifically designed with you in mind, or you have a significant input into it. And so what is that like? Because that is pure customization, and that's a huge thing.
Absolutely. So we did the exact same thing in the Red Opera. Let me try and go to one of our sections.
The patrons.
Yeah, and even to go further into that, because I don't know if you guys know about the comic side of this, but what people do in comics is that they draw, you can get a tier where you could be drawn into the book, or you could be killed in the book. And that's a big thing. And certain companies do that too to redeem reward points, where you can basically get killed in a book. And it's
that's so fun.
It's pretty cool. So here we have our patrons. And
you can show them the art too.
Yeah, so here's some of the art from the Red Opera. And again, people can learn more about this right on our website. That's the redopera.com and apotheosisstudios.com. And we included both a full color sketch and then black and white sketches for people who wanted to create characters.
I like this guy.
So this is Berg. This is the Black Hand, and we created this from one of our tiers. Sorry, it's backwards. There you go. And the person really wanted to have a kind of a fighting orc patron, and this is the character that they wanted to bring into the book. Another one here, we wanted to have a gambling patron, and so we included this into the book too. We then also had my personal favorite. We had Satine as a patron.
I am a patron.
Yeah, within the book. And so we also had side quests. We had people that had custom side quests in the game. This is just one of our chapters, but we really enjoy interacting with our players. Again, we are gamers ourselves, and so we love kind of breaking that kind of fourth wall by allowing our players to be part of the books and to have their characters. Some people have been, traveling with their characters for years, 10 years, as you mentioned, some of these D&D campaigns. And one of our people wanted to bring in their characters into the story as a surprise as a side quest for their entire gaming party. So when the party got to that side quest, it was a side quest that involved people that they already knew.
That's
and it was
so cool.
Canon part of the book.
So what is that like for you? Because that must make you feel really good too, because you might know some of these people, you might not know them. Yep. But obviously I would imagine they give you a heads up saying, hey, I've been going with these people for 5 years and here's a lot of information on them and they don't know. If they tell you that. So
absolutely. We hop on, we
kill them off.
Yeah, exactly. So we exchange some emails to get some information. We hop on a phone call, and we kind of get a download of exactly what they're looking for. We, as on our creative team, we then create the thing that we've kind of all worked on and agreed on, and understanding exactly what they're looking for, and we make sure that it fits in the world and the story that we've created. We then share them some of our art drafts, make sure that it's really in line with their vision, and it went really, really, really well with the Red Opera. People really loved it, and so we're really excited. Even though we're only 5 days in, we already have I think two side quests and two or three characters. I don't know if we may have to eventually cap that, just because depending on how large the book will get. But it's a real honor for us as a creative studio and as game devs to have people love what we're doing so much that they literally want to be inside of it. They want to be in the actual book itself. It's fantastic. And for us, we love actually really going back and forth with these other people to hear their creativity. These are usually very seasoned either game masters or players, and they love this stuff, and they love it arguably as much as we do. And so for us to bring their vision to life and then to share it with other people is a real honor.
And customization is the future in many ways. Exclusivity and customization is the future in many ways. And I know that because I deal with a lot of comic book investing, and I make the most money out of exclusivity books. And so I know all about that, and I think you guys sort of hit the nail on the head with all of that. I think if you wanted to do an entire side quest Kickstarter, you would do probably better than anything else. I really think that. So just an idea, just throwing it out there live.
Well,
feel free to steal
a bunch of one-shots. That could be cool.
Yeah, it'd be cute. We
do
do have Kickstarter exclusives, and one of those is the mini set that we have. Yeah,
and we have what is it? NFT tags inside of it. So it truly is a Kickstarter exclusive for the minis that we're making for this Kickstarter. So it's digitally certified exclusive, and it'll also be used together and have tracking to be able to do a bunch of really cool stuff with their minis.
Oh man, I don't want to talk about NFTs. I don't get them. I don't get
them.
Will.
It's wild. It's wild stuff.
I get Bitcoin. I get Ethereum. I am not into NFTs. So I just don't get it. I prefer the hard copy of exclusivity of books and baseball cards. Is my background. But I digress, because that's not what this is about. And obviously there's a lot more stuff that we didn't get to, but I do want to touch upon Kickstarter as a whole, because obviously I come from Kickstarter Comic Land, which is very fun, and this is a cousin of it. And I know that both of you are sort of new to Kickstarter, and this entire studio is very new. I think you've only done like 3 or 4 at this point.
Yeah, this is our third Kickstarter.
You did one that's your graphic novel.
Yeah, we did a graphic novel.
I'll go grab it.
Of the Last Amazon is actually a graphic novel. So that's a closer cousin. Yeah, so this is our first Kickstarter. This is called The Last Amazon. This is our special edition with slipcase. And then this is our cover art. And so we have it was a full cover, excuse me, full color graphic novel. Yeah, we were super proud of how it came out. So yeah, we were really excited to bring kind of this radically new style of graphic novel with really beautiful art. We were really happy how it came out. But we love Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And the way that they've democratized publishing is fantastic.
We're both collectors. This is one of our libraries. You can't even see what's up on top here. And it was funny because we met actually during his last Kickstarter. It was like love at first sight. It was very cute. And I was like, oh, he gets it. He's making products that are such high quality that they don't get shoved in a place. They are up for display at all times. So he did that with The Last Amazon. He did that with the Red Opera. And now we're doing that with Sirens and the books that we will be putting out in the future. Everything is a collector's item. We have Wormwood Trays, so a place to keep all of your custom dice that no one's ever seen before. Nobody's made these dice that we're making.
No.
They're so incredibly unique. And the box that you keep them in is so unique. It's got specialty wood. It has brass inlay. It has beautiful engraving. The leather on the inside is printed. You can actually roll your dice into the city. It's so beautiful. The coins are collectors. Everything that we do is cherished. And we hope that the people that purchase these also feel the love we put into it and also feel a love for that as well.
And so to even go off of that, because Kickstarter has become a very interesting place in the last 3 years. It's with big names coming in. Obviously, Keanu Reeves did 1.4 million. Scott Snyder, for those who don't know, he wrote Batman, the first 50 issues of the New 52, arguably one of the best Batman writers after Chuck Dixon. Chuck Dixon created Bane. I'm sorry, we know where I stand. Nightfall is phenomenal.
Yeah,
Nightfall is phenomenal. But I digress right there. And he did well, and obviously Charles Soule and Ryan Brown did Curse Words, and a variety of other projects are doing very well from big names. Boom Studios with Power Rangers, they're killing it right now. And so obviously a lot of big names are coming in, and I think it's safe to say that both of you are somewhat big names in many ways. Where obviously I think people know Satine as the queen of D&D to some degree, and so, and from Geeks and Sundry and things like that, and obviously you're making a name for yourself, Jamison. So what is that like for you guys to be on equal footing, though, at the same time? Because that's what Kickstarter has done, where it's made that Scott Snyder and my friend who's coming on at 7 o'clock, Mike Tenner, are on equal footing in many ways. But it's also very tricky, where when more people come in and more oxygen and sort of gets in there and then gets taken out by big names, it becomes a whole complicated entity. So how do you guys feel about Kickstarter and where it's going? Because it's gotten a lot more complicated, I feel.
Yeah, I think for us, I see myself as a creator, and so I really just focus on building the things, the worlds, the stories, the characters that I myself like. And so if I, as a gamer, would enjoy it, then I feel good about sharing it with other gamers. As a reader for our graphic novel, The Last Amazon, and people can learn more. People who really enjoy graphic novels, they can go to thelasamazon.com and check it out. Again, I am my own kind of harshest critic. And so I know that if I like that thing, other people will like it too. And so to be able to work with Satine and to be on a platform like Kickstarter, where we can just say, hey, we have not just a cool idea, but we actually have like a thing, like here it is. This is the thing.
We proved that we can do it.
We can do it and do it very well. Do you want to kind of play with us? Do you want to join in this adventure with us?
Because it's actually community building as well. That's one of my favorite things, is getting to see the people who are interested, getting to meet them, getting to talk with them in the comments on all the different, threads and forums, and getting to kind of interact with them. It's not just a thing where you put the item on a shelf and you hope for the best. This is like full interaction and integration with everyone. And so, what do we learn with Dungeons and Dragons? We are better because of the community that we're in. We're better people because of the players that we play with. So this is us reaching out to everyone and saying, we love this. We hope you love this, to come play with us. Don't just take our stuff and never talk to us.
Yeah.
We are very active in our Discord community.
Yeah.
So it's like what we do is talk and interact.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a very different view on Kickstarter, where I just view it as capitalism. And a lot of what happens with Kickstarter is that sometimes it's cheaper and sometimes it's a little bit more expensive, or other times good stories just won't be published by a traditional publisher because they can't take the risk, or they already have too many submissions and therefore there is no other alternative, or that the creator doesn't want to give up massive rights, which becomes a whole complicated entity where you usually have to hand over your soul and your social security number and your unborn child's social security number. So that's sometimes what happens too. But the Curse Words book, I go back to that, where it was an $80 book. If Image did that book, it would have been $120. Yep. So it was cheaper for me to get it through Kickstarter with added bonuses, being part of something, and it was nicely bound. And then when it funded over, 20,000 into 30, 40, the cover got upgraded and a variety of other stuff happened. And so I view it as that, as well as I'm a variant collector, and there's a bunch of cool people on Kickstarter who don't do mainstream stuff, and their work is awesome. So that's how I view it, is that it serves my self-interest.
Well, I mean, think of it. Last time I talked to you, I was, I think it was book 1 or 2 of New Praetorians, right? And I ended up doing 3 70-page graphic novels. But I did them with the funding from this company. And the company was like, I don't know what the story was. It ended up being really wild. Like, I got paid a lot of money for it. But then they were like, oh, we're going to do something else. I remember meeting with the guy's daughter, and I was like, this all seems really weird. And they pulled the project from under me, and we had this like 10-year plan. And, I was like, do I go to Image? Do I go to Boom? Do I go to these other studios? And how much rights do I have? So I didn't. I actually got really discouraged. But now that we're doing stuff through Kickstarter, we get to own it completely. We have freedom to create whatever we want to create. Nobody will ever have ownership over our creations. And I learned my lesson. I definitely want to stick with Kickstarter. Now, if I partner up with someone, say Image, that's a conversation that we can have. But right now, Kickstarter
Image is not good. Image is
not good anymore. Oh, I don't know.
With Image is that the first thing you do when you get to Image is you go into debt with Image, because you basically have to pay your printing costs, and they take a fee.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But we don't have to, and that's the point.
And that's the beauty of Kickstarter, to democratize publishing, where you as a reader, and you love comic books, and you can say, you know what, I know this writer, I know this artist, I believe in them, I've read what they've already made, I know they're going to make something great, and I'd rather just support them directly than maybe a larger bureaucracy. And I think
it even goes further, because there's plenty of artists I never heard of. There's a book called Cthulhu Invades Oz. Yeah. Brilliant anthology. Concept of it, brilliant. Never heard of 90% of the artists in that anthology. Didn't even care, because I heard of 2 or 3 in there, and I'm like, if this is what the name is supposed to say, and I'm not a Cthulhu reader, but it just seems interesting. Book comes, wasn't disappointed. That book could have never happened with a traditional publisher, because it's too complicated negotiating 60 people's contracts and figuring out. But on Kickstarter, it can happen. Because I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if anybody is a lawyer in the room. Please correct me if you're listening. But obviously, contracts on indie publishing are very different than on mainstream publishing. And so that was a very cool project. And so it's not disappointing. And that's what I like about Kickstarter too. And that's what I even like about this project, is that if this was being done through mainstream, there'd be all these contingencies with the company, and it would be very much an imposition. And also, this is like a 300-page book or around that. That book, I think, with the main publisher would be cut to 150 or 200, versus that extra 100 pages would be cut. And what would be cut first is all the fun stuff. Let's be realistic. All those cool illustrations, side quests, character development, people having the ability to have their character either bought in or drawn in or something like that, all that would be cut first. And then
you'd never be able to have someone have their character, and that's why we're so happy to be on Kickstarter. We really love Kickstarter, and so again, our campaign is live literally right now. So all of you viewers out there, please go and check out our Kickstarter.
It's up above. Links up above.
A link
down
is
below.
right up above. Please check it out. We've again poured our heart and our souls into this, and we just we're gamers, we're writers, we're artists, and we love bringing our games and writing and art to you all. And Kickstarter's fantastic. They've done a great job of democratizing publishing. So we can just say, hey, we have a great idea. We've made really great stuff in the past that a lot of people have enjoyed. Come along on this adventure with us and enjoy our work, and let's all play together.
Yeah. So we are just over $1,000 left till we unlock the David Mack art cut, like collector's
right there. So
art
we need a little push, last little push to get our next stretch goal.
Yeah, and this is a Kickstarter only, right?
Yep.
So this is a Kickstarter exclusive. They can't get this after the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So I do want to back out of Kickstarter, and I'm going to let you guys self-promote in a second, but I am curious because it's my second favorite question asking, and I ask everybody now. I asked 90 people last year. I'm going to be asking 150 people plus this year, and I do want to talk about COVID because COVID has done a lot of damage to a lot of people, including myself. I moved out of D.C. into Connecticut partially because of COVID. Obviously, I haven't been to a con in almost pretty much a year and a half at this point.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's crazy. San Diego didn't happen. That's a big shocker. It's not happening this year. Don't tell me you're going on Thanksgiving weekend because I sure as hell ain't. I don't know who is. That's crazy to me, and that's ludicrous. It's the worst idea ever. There's a bunch of bad ideas that have been presented in the last year and a half. This is by far the worst one, by far the worst. But how has COVID affected both of you, and how has it even affected marketing this project and putting it out there and going to cons and doing what needs to be done? Because I'm a strong believer that creators, it's great that we're doing this live and that we're seeing people because we have that technology, but it's also people need to be, sort of touched or at least touchable, if that makes any sense.
Totally.
So be a physical person, I should say. I know how this sounds. Really bad wordage.
So we were really lucky at Apotheosis Studios. We have an international team, and so our entire team, we were already using Discord as our primary communication channel, and so COVID, although affected us deeply, just because we, who knew what was going to happen? It was a worldwide pandemic. A lot of people were dying, but we knew at least that we were able to continue doing the work that we were doing. And that we assumed that Kickstarter would still be a viable marketplace for us to share our work. And we had a feeling, because that's what we were doing as gamers, that people were going to transition, at least for the time being, away from playing in each other's homes to playing online via Zoom, Discord, not really Skype because nobody uses that anymore, but doing a lot of virtual gaming. And that proved to be correct and accurate. And so I think for us, we were able to adapt as a company and as a community and as creators to lean into technology to allow us to continue to not just make our art, but also enjoy it as well and still play games with each other. Satine has a very successful Patreon page in where she is able to run games at distance with people all over the world.
Well, that was actually interesting. I had converted to virtual gaming a year prior because I traveled the world for work, creating events in different countries to gather communities. So this, I didn't get affected for this except for conventions. Yeah. So I do a lot of major events. That is what, people pay me to come to their convention. It is awesome. It works very well. I like to gather people. That was the hardest part of of quarantine, is not being able to see people. But, we've got a lot of really cool stuff happening. At the end of this year, we're going to be at D&D in a castle. We're going to do more events because we just got vaccinated. Other people are. There's more rules about it now. Even traveling internationally, there's more rules. So it is coming back, and also other people have tools and skills to continue gaming virtually and in person. I hate to cut this short, but we're actually late to another meeting. But I really wanted to thank you for having us on here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a
So
pleasure to be able
quickly,
to share.
you got 2 minutes. Just tell people where they can find you, find the Kickstarter, all that
Thanks.
stuff, because that's super important.
Yeah, go to thebardbook.com and go. There's tiers, and then there's add-ons after that. Read all about it. Right at the top, there's downloads, so little down arrow buttons. Just click that image, and you can download free samples of the sound set, the PDF, and 2 of the virtual tabletops. And yeah, just keep in touch with us. We really love to meet other people in the community. If you're a comic book nerd like the rest of us, if you are a tabletop nerd, whether you're board games or TTRPGs, we totally get it. We are also collectors, and please ask whatever questions you want, because we're very open and we like to have a conversation.
Yeah, and people who enjoy Twitch, we have 3 shows a week on Satine.
Oh, we have one like in an hour or 2.
Yep, we have one coming up, in fact.
So
that's
on that note, Satine's website is up there. I'll be putting Apotheosis.
Apotheosis, you got it.
I can't speak today, clearly. I'll be putting that link up there, as well as the Kickstarter link is up there. And I'm going to let both of you go to your next meeting.
Thank you.
Guys, back to Kickstarter is all I'm going to say.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're almost there. We're
almost
almost there.
So close to the next stretch goal. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.